Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, up, talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop.
Pull up a seat. You're now in Corey's Corner, where right conversations matter. I'm your host, Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. This episode of Corey's Corner is brought to you by Vaquila, some of the smoothest liquor you'll ever taste. If you're unwinding or having a family function or something at the job, make sure you include Vaquila. Go to vaquila.net to find out more. Shout out to Corrupt Mob MC. It's more than a motorcycle club. It's a brotherhood. It's built on loyalty, respect, and community. Respect the mob. Corey's Corner is powered by Story to Tell Productions. If you're looking to start a podcast and you don't know where you at with it, how to do it, you need to hire Story to Tell Productions. They are new on the scene, but very vibrant, as you can see. The set is done by Story to Tell Productions. On this episode of Corey's Corner, we're joined by a powerful voice at the intersection of faith, politics, and community activism, Reverend Taharka Robinson. The son of former New York State Assemblywoman Annette Robinson, Reverend Robinson was raised in the world of public service and has built a legacy of his own. As a founder of Urban Political Consulting Group, he has helped shape campaigns across New York State successfully, managing the election of over 21 judges to the Kings County Civil and Supreme Court. But his impact goes far beyond politics. From leading national advocacy efforts in the tragic case of Chanel Petro Nixon to organizing movements that changed consumer protection laws and pushed one of the largest banks in the country to recognize Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Reverend Robinson has consistently turned pressure into progress. A man of faith, a community leader, and a champion for justice, he continues to fight for equity, accountability, and opportunity while mentoring the next generation and strengthening the role of the church in our communities. My brother.
How are you, sir?
Reverend Robinson, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, when I did Corey's Corner and I transitioned from sitting in the house doing interviews, you was one of the first people I wrote down what they call those when the women be writing down them vision boards. I had a whole list of names you was on, but you so busy I can't even get to you, brother.
I try to work a little bit, you know. I got to keep the lights on. My youngest daughter is studying her prerequisites for medical school right now.
Oh, nice.
And so, I told her I didn't want her to go to work while she was in school.
Right.
So I told her, I said, listen, you go ahead and take care of your business so you can get into medical school. Mm-hmm. You know, she has to take some prerequisites for some other courses that she didn't take in undergrad. She takes these prerequisites, and then she takes the MCAT, and then she'll go and she'll get in medical school, and she's going to be a doctor.
I love that.
You know, I got to stay working.
I love that.
I'm not one of those preachers who preach in the pulpit. We'll get to that, though.
Preaching's a big deal right now. I'm about ready to go to seminary college because I'm going to get me a little storefront. I see all the preachers, y'all pushing heavy out there.
Well, you got to think about something. It's about the work that people do. And thank you for what you said, because I've been working a long time trying to get things done in the community and to be substantive with getting those things done.
Oh, we're going to get into all of that. As a matter of fact, you're always moving. What's been keeping you active in the trenches lately?
Well, I look at the circumstances that are transpiring in our community. I look at the mindsets of the generation now. I was telling somebody the other day that we've gone through not the crack babies, but the crack generation. So I gave the crack generation from 1985 to 2005. And between 1985 and 2005, you've had hundreds of thousands of people become incarcerated because of the crack trade. You had people die because of the crack trade. You had a lot of people who did not have parents to take care of them because they were either substance abusers or they may have been incarcerated, and some people may have passed away.
Right.
And so there was a generation of grandparents who were starting to raise their children. And once the generations and the grandparents start raising children, grandparents get older. They couldn't manage the children, and so the children started managing themselves. And once the children started managing themselves, they started accepting certain
The
things.
grandchildren.
The grandchildren, yeah, sorry.
Right.
The grandchildren started raising themselves, right? And so, but in the process of them raising themselves, now you have the evolution of the internet coming in, right? And the internet has become so prevalent over the past 20 years now, it's gotten to limits where people are suing these companies for their children's overexposure to the internet. And a lot of these things that these children see on the internet, they're not understanding this is not real.
Let me ask you a question. When people hear your name, what do you want them to think?
I would want them to think that someone is trying to do something constructive and bring about a resolution to whatever crisis that avails them at that time.
Would you consider yourself a hitman?
No. Hitman for what?
What I don't mean literally go out and kill somebody, but when issues arise in the community, you're for hire. I've seen this.
Well, I'm not for hire. No one has never gave me $1 anywhere to do anything. I have spent my own money, thousands of dollars, up into the double digits to get legislation passed, to get a bank to close, to honor. Okay, I'm sorry, but we talk about these. I don't know what nobody else does. I don't get into nobody else's business.
I didn't literally mean that you get paid. I just mean like when there's an issue, call Taharka Robinson.
Yeah, but it has to be an issue, right? And I everybody has these different problems, right? It has to be an issue that it's going to bring about some substantive change, right? I'll give you an example. Some years ago, and I'm going to tell you this is important. Some years ago, when I first met you, right? Can I speak about this?
Absolutely.
When I first met you, you were the commanding officer of Public Service Area Number 3.
Two,
right? That was Brownsville, New York, right? Excuse me. Thank you for correcting me. And you want to know what happened? There was a rapist running around the community. Now, I have daughters. We have daughters. We're not into the rape stuff. We don't do none of that stuff. And anybody who rapes a woman or rapes a child or whatever the case may be, I really feel that they need to be dealt with accordingly.
That's right.
And y'all took care of them. So that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Meaningful work to change a mindset in a community that has been broken over a period of time.
You worn many hats: consultant, activist, minister. What role feels most natural to you?
The role that feels most natural to me is to actually be an activist. Because, the job of the activist is to focus on those who are being ignored. And when you see a situation like a young girl, Chanel Petrel Nixon, she was from the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. She was the brightest and best that our community had to offer.
We're gonna get into her too.
Okay.
I got some questions about her.
And thank you. And so what happened was that when her mother went to the police department and said her daughter was missing and she wanted to make a police report, they said that her daughter was a runaway. And she said, my daughter didn't run away. And these people had no form of recourse to go to the police department at the time. And this guy, I remember the guy's name, because I still have the police report, right? He put her down as a runaway, and he didn't even look for them. And I became so enraged because maybe a few months earlier, there was a situation with a young lady who lived on the Upper East Side. And she was out hanging out, partying one night, and she didn't come home that night, and she was 26 years old, and her roommate reported her not coming home, and the New York City Police Department, at that time, that commissioner, I'm not even going to mention him, but that commissioner at the time, they put out a whole citywide search for this woman, and they found her like the next morning, and they apprehended the killer the next day. And so the activist part of me, I was very enraged. And so what I did was challenge everybody in the city, from the mayor to the district attorney to the police commissioner, to deal with this issue with this young lady, because I really believe if they would have conducted a search, and this was with the New York City Police Department, I don't know if they changed it, but I think he changed it. But the rule was, if a person is a senior citizen, a child, or has a mental disability, a search was supposed to be conducted immediately. And it wasn't. And so I had a lot of frustration in dealing with that, because there's a disparity in dealing with the different communities.
Oh, we gonna get into all of that. I love it. What's one lesson life taught you early that still guides you today? And I know you are one of six, but you six of six.
Yeah.
So you're the young boy.
You know what lesson I got learned?
Mm-hmm.
Trust nobody.
Mm.
The people next to you will be the first ones to hurt you.
That's right.
That guides me every day.
Mm-hmm. But do you keep your enemies close?
I don't have any enemies that I know about. If I have any, I don't know. If my enemies had a vote, I wouldn't be here today.
You're right about that. Let's go back to 2002. What inspired you to launch Urban Political Consulting Group?
Well,
and what gap were you trying to fill?
Well, at this time, let me go back a couple of years. I had wanted to do, I came up with a proposal back around 2000. This is what happened. I wanted to do street teams for politicians.
Oh, you was tapping into the music industry.
No, exactly. Let me tell you what happened.
Okay, I like it.
Let me tell you what happened. I was trying to do street teams for politicians. And I gave the proposal to a couple of people who had the New York State Democratic Committee. You know, being that my mother was in the city council at that time, she's a very respected elected representative. She took me to and said, hey, you know, my son has some ideas he wants to do them because the Democratic Party at the time was talking about how could they reach the next generation.
Right.
And I said, you can reach them through the hip hop generation. And so what motivated me was that at that time, there were two people that I used to go and register people to vote with in the tunnel. Two of them.
Wow.
One is from Queens and one is from the Bronx. And it's two very successful men in the city and the state of New York.
Right.
And we used to go to the tunnel to get people to register to vote.
So for those viewers that don't know what the tunnel is a legendary club in New York City owned by Funk Flex, Chris Lighty, very influential club. Could be very dangerous at times also.
Yeah. And so we used to go there. I had some people that knew the people, and they would let us in. And, you know, my mother even went to the tunnel one night with us. And she was in there.
Mama
was in there with a mink coat on. She had, you know, they was up there. She wanted to see what the young people were doing.
Right.
And she said, this is an untapped market, and we need to reach out to these people. And so we would give people, we would encourage people to register to vote.
Right.
So that's what we were doing. We would register some people. And I said, well, this is what we need to do. We need to put a proposal, do outreach to these different genres. And so we would go to people like Flex and some other individuals and say, hey, we want to try to get the rest of it. And so, of course, they figure it's a good idea because, you know, these clubs was a little bit something nervous.
Yeah.
You know, and so they say, hey, man, we got the politicians coming around here. We don't have the people in the neighborhood bothering us, trying to shut us down, close down, say, hey, we're with it.
Right.
And so after that, we talked to the people at the New York State Democratic Committee, and I gave the people my proposal. And I think at the time it was Bill Bradley and Al Gore were supposed to be running for president at the time. And former senator and the Secretary of State, Clinton, was also running, and she was running for senator at the time. And so they had this big ticket across the state. And so they said, well, hey, we're going to think about this, but I want you to do this. Can you get some outreach into these different communities, you know, to get the word out? So they started sending me, and this is how I transferred into it. They started sending me into all of the communities that people were afraid to go to.
Right.
So being that I was in Brooklyn has the largest concentration of Democrats anywhere in the country. And so what happened was they said, hey, will you give some literature out at the pink houses?
Right.
I said, sure. They said, what about Cypress? I said, sure. They said, what about Boulevard? I said, sure. What about Linden Plaza? I said, sure. She said, what about in Brownsville? Because everybody was scared to death to go to Brownsville.
They still are.
I know. And
except for me and you.
And so, except for me too.
We feel comfortable
I was in Ceflo last week. And so, because I work with the tenant leaders still, I build relationships with them, but that's another point. And so, I would go to these developments, but these people didn't understand the dynamic.
Right.
They had tenant leaders in those buildings. And the tenant leader was always somebody's mama or grandmama.
Yeah, Lisa
and
Kenner.
None of them young boys going to diss no grandma or no mama in those developments. Everybody loved Miss Mary. Everybody loved Miss May. Everybody loved Miss Brown. Everybody loved Mama this. Everybody loved Mama Sadie. Anybody. And so what do? You go to the developments and you go to the tenant leaders and say, hey, I would like to go throughout the buildings distributing literature in the community about candidates such and such and such and such. Is it possible we could create a partnership?
Mm-hmm.
And they would be like, okay. And I would build those partnerships with those tenant leaders, and then they'll call the next person because they're all part of a collective. If you remember, that's Brooklyn East Resident Association leaders. So that was your area where you patrolled, and that's what made me move towards starting a company because what happened was I started building up the numbers, I started generating the turnout, and people started saying I was effective. And so the leadership in the Democratic Party gave me a bigger role. But I'm going to tell you what really made me start the consulting firm. While they had me doing this, they gave my idea to a rapper. And the rapper was running around telling people about voting. Right. I'm not going to say his name because he don't even know what happened. He came up with an idea talking about voting, and they completely... My whole process was gone, but I guess the consolation was give him a job doing something. He ain't going to think about this because they had bigger plans because another guy from the music industry, he wanted to get involved in it. So he took it because he had the resources, he had the influence. And, you know, people in part of the political business always want to have resources. And this person... he had a lot of resources. They gave it to him. They put it together. They repackaged it, and it became something else. And
I remember Get Out the Vote. I remember.
And so after they did that to me, I was very angry, and I said, "I'm going to get these people back."
Then you went and started your own company.
I did.
I love it.
And nobody wanted to hire me. Nobody wanted to give me a job.
But you're a pit bull, so you made them pit bulls. They clamp on and don't let go. But let's jump into this. You've helped this one. I'm more impressed with. You've helped elect over 21 judges. What does that level of influence and responsibility feel like? And I know a lot of the judges that you elected.
Well, you know, my passion for the judiciary comes out of a situation that I was in many years ago when I was younger. And when I was in that situation, you had a lot of people saying they had problems and they got railroaded and they didn't have the means or the resources to avail themselves of those circumstances. I said to myself, when I get out of this situation, I'm going to work to change the process of how things are done in the judiciary.
How many judge campaigns have you lost? 3. So you batting 3 out of 20, so that's 25. That's a good number, man. You're about 85%. Yeah. If now you know somebody gonna be on Corey's corner doing the math and say that I'm wrong.
They ain't not wrong.
Leave me alone.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
You do. Those numbers are good. What separates a successful political campaign from one that fails, especially in urban communities?
Well, you know, it's all about communication. It's all about relating to the individuals. Your target base needs to understand who you are as a candidate. The thing about the judiciary is that candidates cannot put forth an agenda. They can't say, I'm going to do this. They can't say that because they have to be fair and impartial because the scales of justice are allegedly
But
blind.
do they have to now? With the president of the United States? Do they
I don't want to get and talk about that. I don't know nothing about that. I'm telling you about, I'm just talking about the judges that I worked for and I got elected. I don't know nothing about nobody else's. You know, I don't want to get off everybody else, man. I just...
Let me ask you a question. Was there a moment in your career where you realized, like, I'm really shaping power in New York City?
You want to know what I realized when I tell you? When the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct subpoenaed me and they tried to prosecute me. I was prosecuted wrongly for dealing with judicial campaigns. Right. And it was clearly evident that I can show anybody because somebody's going to see this. I do have the letter of dismissal when the judge dismissed my case. Right. I was actually talking about it in church on Palm Sunday, and I got up in church and started doing a dance because I said almost 20 years ago they dismissed my case. And I jumped and danced around the church because I'm so happy because a lot of people can't get a case dismissed. No. And that was back in it was 2007. Case went on for 18 months. Do you know, that's when I knew I was changing the game because I was getting so many African American judges elected,
Yes.
and the system could not understand it because there was a network in place
Mm-hmm.
that we were supposed to stay back.
Right.
And so a guy like me from around the way who did not go to college, I have no BA, I ain't got no BA or JD or MA, I have none of that. I ain't got no AA, and I didn't go to AA neither.
I like that.
I was able to come up with a way to communicate with people and relate to them what the need was to have judges of color from the community.
And you know what? That leads right into 2008. So 2008, you took your call to ministry. How did that transition change your perspective
Well,
on leadership?
through my activism and through much prayer and much spiritual direction, I really felt the call on my life to ministry because I wanted to minister to people who were like me, who didn't understand church in a way, and that there's so many different ways that you could be a minister in the community. When I became a minister, I was not a minister. I didn't become a minister to go to church and preach every week and talk to people at church and whatever. I became a minister to be outside because as a clergy member, there are different ways for you to communicate with people.
Right.
And the majority of our community is always in the church. And so to work with the churches, you become a member of the faith-based community. And I went to school.
Right.
I had to go to school for that.
Yeah,
And I had to
similar.
study. I had to study. I had to learn. There's not no fly-by-night stuff here, and it's hard.
So how do you balance being a political strategist and a man of faith?
You know what?
I mean, hold on. Easter Sunday.
Yes.
President of the United States says he's going to demolish civilization in Iran, and he says, peace to Allah.
I can't even speak on that. It's so many different things going on there.
So disrespectful.
I had to let that go.
So disrespectful.
I just had to let that go.
So how do you balance being political strategist and a man of faith?
There's some things that you see that you just got to walk away from. If you stay there, you talk about everything, you jump on everything, you're not going to be able to be productive in what goal that you are pursuing.
Right.
And so there's a thin line between politics and the faith-based community. And what a lot of people don't understand, you have to know how to navigate your way through circumstances. Because even in politics and people in the political arena and people in this field, elected representatives, they're human beings. And there has to be a level of humanity in dealing with people. And I think by being a minister, being in politics, you would be surprised how many people are faith-based oriented. They can be African American, they can be Hispanic, they can be white, they can be Jewish, they can be Asian. I've ran across so many individuals across the spectrum, and a lot of people have a faith-based, and a lot of individuals don't even know that they are faith-based because when they're in that culture, when they're in that arena, they have to be whatever they have to be, what they're doing.
Well, let's talk about Chanel Petro Nixon case. No, it was very powerful. Let the people know. You kind of let the people know who she was before she was missing. The police department didn't do whatever they were supposed to do. What drove you to take such a public stand? And how did that moment impact you personally?
I have 3 daughters. And when I found out that something that heinous could transpire in my community, and not one man was trying to find out what happened except the child's father, I found that very, 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 very...
So let me just jump in on the police side of things because, and I'm not protecting the police. We got to give the information out. There's so many missing people that come up every day, and a lot, probably, I don't know, I hate doing numbers, but probably like 80% of missings, especially youth, they end up being runaways. And I'm not defending the cops in this particular case because you're saying there was some exigent circumstances that they should have looked at, but I'm just letting you know. So sometimes the cops, they get, because the kid don't come home after school, they're calling, all right, we take the report, it's a missing. So that's always a little great, but if there's exigent circumstances, it should be a full-blown missing. I totally agree with you.
Well, the thing about that case, and I understand what you're saying, but if the police department wants to follow letter of law sometimes. They need to follow letter of law all the time.
No, they should definitely follow all the time.
And I'm not saying anything bad about the police department,
Right.
but that was an egregious and I really believe that the failure of the New York City Police Department at that time,
Right.
I think that if they would have went looking for that young lady, maybe something could have turned out differently.
Where did they find her?
They found her about, let me see, on maybe 8-9 blocks away from her house in a garbage bag in front of 212 Kingston Avenue, Crown Heights. Right.
When justice took so long in that case, how did you maintain faith and persistence?
Well, you know, I promised our parents. I said, I'm going to be here for the duration with you, and we're going to fight.
I'm sorry. They found her how many days after, or was it that
4 days. 4 days.
4 days. So the cops didn't do anything. They put her down as a runaway. So they didn't do anything.
No, they didn't do anything. And so...
And where was she coming from?
Well, hold on. She was going from her house to go get a job application at a business location. I'm not giving the business location.
Yeah, whatever.
And they were given, she was looking for a job application and told her mother that she was going to fill out a job application. She was going with this guy who was their friend. We went to Seventh-day Adventist school with him. She knew him all her life or whatever because she was going to meet him. Well, he said she never met her. And they found her 4 days later. And comes out he's the guy who ended up getting indicted and arrested for murdering her.
Damn. That's weird to me that she tells him. So, you know, this is my police inspector hat, executive. You got the case, you get the call. She went to such and she just left at 6 o'clock to go fill out an application.
Exactly.
She's never ran away. We have no documented history of her running away at all. She never showed up. Sounds like a missing person to me.
Exactly. And that's what happened. And so I took it and ran with it. I came up. They told me what happened. I said, somebody give me the girl's picture. One of the journalists at the time was working in the newspaper. He had to send me the picture. I went and got pictures posted. I got posters made of the picture.
Right.
And I put on the bottom, somebody knows something.
Right.
Right? 1-800-1577-TIS, whatever the number was.
Right.
And I put them up all around the place. Parents and family didn't know me. The man started asking people in the neighborhood, who was this guy putting up posters on my daughter? And the man found me out. Somebody called me and said, this girl's father want to talk to you. And when I got over there to talk to him, the mother started crying and telling me thank you, and she appreciated it. I said, you ain't got to tell you. I said, I'm a father. I got 3 daughters right here in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
That's right.
I said, so I have to take care of my family. I said, your daughter was my daughter. I'm going to treat it as such.
Well, I totally applaud you for that. Now, let's jump to this. You led a movement that changed rent-to-own laws in New York.
Yes, I did.
People don't understand this power that these guys have. What did that fight teach you about power and policy?
Well, it's all about economics.
Is this the Rent-A-Center?
Yes.
That what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Oh, we got to back up on Rent-A-Center. Kev, I got my producer Kev guy here. It's Rent-A-Center. I'm the commanding officer at the time in NYPD of the 6-7 precinct. I'll never forget you calling me. You were protesting Rent-A-Centers all over Brooklyn. The city. And you called me and you said, bro, I'm just let you know. I ain't fucking with you. You my brother. I'm not coming into your area. I fucking never forget that.
I wanted that Rent-A-Center so bad.
I know.
It was right there on Nostradamus. Right. I wanted it so bad.
Exactly.
Oh, it was prime time. I'm like, I wanted that so bad. That was the one I wanted. But because you were there, I couldn't do it to her.
You see, this is the love. But this is the love. When you treat people with respect, this is how you get. Let me tell you, I was like, damn, please. I was like, Taharka, don't fucking, I don't need no protest right there. Because, you know, I'm dealing with bodies over there. I ain't had no men and women to sit on no protest. So let's talk about that.
Well, you know.
What did that fight teach you about power and policy?
Well, I mean,
you was all over the news, all over the newspaper. You was everywhere.
I was. You want to know why?
For Rent-A-Center.
Because there was a draconian law in place in New York State. And the law was made by a governor from back in the 80s, right? And the law had allowed the rent-to-own companies, Rent-A-Center stores, to set the price of the merchandise at their own discretion. And so this television or the computer over here If you go in the store, it can charge you whatever you want to charge, and you'll never probably end up paying for it.
Right.
The computer could cost maybe $300, $400 in another store, but then you go to the Rent-A-Center store, and it ends up costing another $700, $800 over time.
Right.
And then what they would do, if you did not pay your bill, they would send off-duty law enforcement individuals to people's homes to come collect the merchandise, and that was illegal. So they used intimidation and they used the fiscal insecurity of individuals to take advantage of communities of color all over the
Because
city.
it was all over in the minority communities.
You know what? A lot of them closed since then.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, a lot of them closed, and the stock value went down a lot. It was $26 a share back then. It went all the way down to $11, $12 a share. But that's another story. The point I'm making, when we talk about power and influence, we had to create a movement to let people know that this was not right. And I went to the governor, the one who made the law back from the 80s, and I said, listen, we need to talk about changing this law. But, you know, a lot of people don't never want to go back and say they were wrong. And then you also got to understand in this business that, you know, people are able to profit off of certain things and certain businesses. And so it was profitable for individuals who were in the center to continue to perpetuate their business platform. We got together and said we were going to focus on legislation. And I'm going to say this because there was a young assembly member who I went to. I looked up the stuff. I did the research. And I went to the young assembly member at the time. This was back in 2008. It's almost 20 years ago. And I said, Assembly member, you have a Rent-A-Center store in your district. You know, my mother was an assembly member in the 56th Assembly District, and she had one in her district, so I couldn't protest my mom.
Right, of course.
I couldn't protest my mother, and I did not want to
So your mother, your brother, Corey Pegues, you couldn't protest those areas.
So what happened was, I did want my mother at the time, she was in the New York State Legislature.
Right.
I did not want to ask my mother to help me with this. I wanted to do this all on my own. And I started showing, thank you. I started showing up, and the first protest I did, I went to the assembly member, and I got clergy members, I got community members, I had leaders, I had people off from community, because Rent-A-Center was brutally victimizing
everybody.
People, man. They was doing some egregious stuff to folks, man, and people were upset, they was hurt, and they was in a lot of pain. Somebody had a bed, the bed cost $3,000. We actually were able, I took a piece of legislation, got the piece of legislation drafted by assembly member at that time at the 57th Assembly District. And he was Assemblyman 57th Assembly District in 2008. This was going through 9. And we protested on what they call the Friday Thanksgiving as Black Friday. Everybody goes shopping. Yeah. We went right in front of that store on on Bedford and Fulton. Then we marched to the store on Gates Avenue. It was on Gates between Marcus Garvey and Troop, and went to the 79th precinct, and I told them, you know, they didn't want to arrest us. I said, man, y'all gonna have to arrest me today. So I said, because I said I'm going to jail and y'all messing with my credibility as a leader, I got to go to jail. I said, I know how they gonna lock me up. I said, Rent-A-Center said they wasn't gonna lock me up. The cop said, well, they ain't gonna lock you up. You can stay here if you I said, they ain't gonna lock me up. I said, man, man, watch this. I went and sat down right in the middle of the street, crossed my legs. They're going to have to lock me up now. Because now I'm impeding the buses,
traffic.
impeding traffic, and I'm impeding vehicular traffic. I remember that's how they wrote it up.
Right.
And they finally said, and the community affairs officer said,
yeah, yo, let me tell you, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. TD Bank protests led to 14,000 branches. 1,400 branches closing for MLK Day.
From Maine to Florida.
How did you pull that off?
Well, let me explain something to you.
So TD Bank that's a national holiday. And TD Bank was like, fuck national holiday. Well, we're staying open.
Well, because I know we're on the podcast and people are going to fact check this. Let's go back to the Martin Luther King bill and the law being signed into a holiday. There was a senator from North Carolina, I'm not going to say his name. They were trying to get everybody to vote so they could pass this day, Martin Luther King holiday. I think John, I ain't gonna say his name, another member of Congress who introduced the bill back in 69 or 71, whatever the case may be. So I know, I just want to get the names mixed up.
Yeah.
There was a put into the bill that banks may, this senator, in order to get his vote for this bill, put it there, banks may remain open. So, but it's a national holiday.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to show you. This is what comes to banks. This is what comes to me. TD Bank was open on Martin Luther King's holiday. TD's bank's name is Toronto Dominion Bank, but there used to be another bank. It was Commerce Bank. Started in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, maybe in 1985, 86. And then after that, they were purchased by Toronto Dominion Bank. And so, according to the law, according to this, that's in the legislation that banks may remain open. TD Bank took it upon themselves to remain open on Martin Luther King. They said they stay open 7 days a week. Right. They have this day to open, that day they close, this way they open. And I said, why would you have a bank open on a national holiday? First of all, it's Dr. King's holiday. I said the automated killing house. Can't nothing go through it. No checks, no nothing. It's closed.
Right.
The federal government is closed. The state government is closed. Everything is closed. Why would you not respect the legacy of Dr. King and be closed on Dr. King's holiday? Now, I started this in 2008 or 9 with Commerce Bank.
Right.
But I let it go because I had some other things I had to do. I got all caught up in Rent-A-Center, so I had to let that go for a little while. I had to come back to this 8 years later. So we got to that process. I looked at the revenue that was coming in and going out, and I said, "Listen, y'all gonna have to respect Dr. King on this holiday." And so what I did was I went to some individuals who I know. Some attorneys, some business people, people who had substantial amount of resources invested in TD Bank. And I got them to come along with me, and we told TD Bank clearly, if you don't close on Dr. King's holiday, we're going to pull our resources.
Right.
After be protesting, I got arrested at that also, because, I've said I'm going to do what Dr. King did. I'm going to offer myself a civil disobedience so y'all could know that I'm serious. See, people don't understand. When you sit there, you can just protest, yeah, fine. But when you sit yourself down and have to get arrested, and you're going to have to go through some form of legal recourse, whatever it is, you're going to go through some legal recourse. Because at some point in time, they got sick of me getting arrested around the city, and I paid for it a little bit. I got roughed up. A couple of times because the commissioner, Corey wasn't around. I had to stay out. He couldn't protect me. I never got arrested.
But listen, but it doesn't even stop because in 2020 you fought workplace discrimination in New York City court system.
Yes, I did. That was during the height of COVID. There were members who were members of SSEU DC 37 Local 371, who president, I can say that proudly, is Anthony Wells. And he had come to me and said, Robinson, you down here in these courts and they're mistreating my members in the court, and they were doing all types of crazy things to the members in the union and the courts. And he said, man, we got to get this guy, man. He said, I'm going to find out something first. And then we're going to get back. I'm going to get to you. He said, I want you to go down there since these court people know you, right? He said, I want you to go down there and, we're going to put something together, man. I want you to organize something for me. And I said, sure. Now, mind you, this is in the height of COVID. Right. And I said, well, if the man from the union asked me to go down there, I'm going down there. It's fun for me. I didn't like the guy anyway myself.
Right.
Because he was mistreating people. And anytime you mistreat people in those workplace environments, because you got to understand, people at that point in time during COVID weren't going to work.
Yeah.
And then they make people come back to work. And people were under a lot of duress. There was a lot of uncertainty about their health conditions, about their employment, how they were going to pay their bills and things of that nature. And so I was like, okay, let me go get them. And so I went. It was 21, as a matter of fact. It was 21 because, it was 21. We were still in COVID, and actually went down there. We put this demonstration against the guy, and the guy got fired.
Wow.
The guy got fired. The workplace discrimination wasn't with that in 2020. That was with a court officer. A court officer. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it was the court officer.
What I said. I said the court system.
Yeah. But these two happened at the same building, a year apart.
Oh, okay.
So we were down there at the court. I just got confused. I just thought about it. 2020. There was a court officer who put a post on the internet with Barack Obama in a noose, put in a noose, former Secretary of State, and carrying her off the gallows saying, "Traitor, we would not yield." And so I actually called the president of that union at that time, and I said, "Listen, man, this lady gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
She's crazy, discriminatory behavior in an environment. She's unfit to be an officer in a court system where you're interacting with so many black and brown people constantly. You are not going to be fair or impartial in dealing with them."
Right.
And so we went down there and we protested, and she got fired too.
So if y'all want somebody to get fired, make sure y'all reach out to Reverend Taharka Robinson, because he ain't playing no freaking games. Now listen, I want them more. Get them all. Get all their asses out. We at the part of Corey's Corner called the Spitfire Round. Well, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid-fire questions. You're going to answer yes, no. Try to give me one-word answers. Don't give me no explanations. Just yes, no, or maybe both if you feel that way. It's a fun game. You ready?
Yeah.
Politics or ministry?
You said yes or no, or do I say politics or ministry?
Yeah, politics or ministry.
I gotta take ministry.
Behind the scenes or front line?
Behind the scenes.
One word to hold on. Behind the scenes, you're on the front line. You're over here, you protesting all over the place. Now you behind the scenes, behind the scenes, you get people elected. I
haven't protested anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I retired, man.
One word to describe your leadership style.
Fearless.
Biggest challenge facing urban communities right now. Faith or strategy, what leads first?
Faith.
Most powerful tool, protest, policy, or the pulpit?
Policy.
A leader you admire most, not your mother.
That's hard to say. It's got a couple of them.
You only get one.
Leader who I currently admire the most, not my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, man.
You gotta leave mama out.
I'll just say my pastor.
Okay. One word to describe New York politics.
Insane.
Yes, it is right now. Change takes patience or pressure?
Pressure.
Legacy impact. Which matters most?
Legacy.
Okay. Thank you for participating in the Spitfire round. That was fun, right?
That was cool.
It's Assemblywoman Chantel Jackson. Check out Corey's Corner on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Before we move forward, let me take you somewhere for a second. Everything we talk about on this show, accountability, power, loyalty, and redemption, it's not just a conversation for me. I lived it, I survived it, I earned it. I've seen both sides of the system. I walked the streets, I worn the badge, carried the weight of decision that changed people's lives. That's why I wrote Once a Cop. It's not just a book, it's the raw, unfiltered truth about the journey from the corners of Queens to the high offices and headquarters of the New York City Police Department. The pressure, the politics, the purpose, the cost. In a documentary, A Cops and Robbers Story, pulls the curtain back even further. No headlines, no sound bites, just the human story behind the uniform. Because behind every badge is a man, behind every rank is a story, and behind every story is a choice. Now a word from our sponsors.
This is not your average vodka. This is Vodkila, a decade of cultured excellence. The best of both worlds, the true taste of victory. A delicious dyad spirit, the world's finest blend of vodka and tequila. Vodkila, the perfect blend. From rooftop parties to quiet moments with friends, Vodkila brings the flavor, the fire, and the unforgettable. So pour it, share it, live it. Vodkila. Visit vodkila.net and order yours today.
Hi, I'm Tara Wallace. Check out Corey's Corner on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
Yes.
Rev.
Yes, sir.
Being the son of former Assemblywoman Annette Robinson, hello, Ma. You grew up around power, policy, and public service. How did that shape your understanding of leadership? And when did you realize you wanted to carve your own path?
Well, I saw what could be done I saw how things could change when you open up your mouth. And I got a chance to learn how government worked and what happens when you can affect change within government. You gain another level of influence, another level of respect. And so when I started seeing my mother and other individuals, she would take me to meetings. I would listen to what they would talk about in the meetings and what they were trying to get done. And I would think that, hey, can this stuff really get done? Because, you know, coming from the Bedford-Stuyvesant community, I grew up, I'm a 70s person, 70s, 80s, where I grew up in the 70s. You think about how Bedford-Stuyvesant was then, and you see what it has evolved to now. And the people in the community stayed during the trial and tribulation of the drug epidemic. They stayed through the trial and tribulation of the crime epidemic. They stayed to the tribulation of abandoned home epidemic. And so the people in the community should not continue to go through those changes as time goes on. And so what I saw, the community changed. But those same people who stayed in the community, those same people who invested in the community have gotten older. And some of their children did not want to have the responsibility to help sustain the community that they built.
Did you feel like you had to step from the shadows of your mother, Annette Robinson, and define who Taharka Robinson was? Because, come on, let's just be real. Your mother's a stalwart in Brooklyn politics, in New York State. So everywhere you go, you growing up, and everybody's going, that's Assemblywoman Annette Robinson's son.
Well, the problem I have with that is that there was a time when nobody wanted to say nothing to Annette Robinson, because you know, everybody knows,
Right.
I wasn't the son that they wanted to say something at the time. And some people, if they did say something to me, they didn't know what they were going to get from me.
Right.
And I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I got into this business, I had to struggle from the ground up because it was clearly evident nobody wanted me to grow and be part of that. Right. And they said, oh, that's just Miss Robinson's son. I said, no, I'm Taharka Robinson.
And you look exactly like her, too.
I know. and you know, and I said, my mother doesn't pay my bills.
Right.
My mother never got me a job. My mother never did nothing for me. I worked day and night, sometimes 20, 24-hour days to build myself to be the individual that I am, because I would go where a lot of people would not go. A lot of people were afraid to take chances and to do things. And so I said that I had to work 10 times harder than my mother did, because I'll never catch up with her.
Never
catch up with her. I can't even touch her legacy.
No, you
but
can't.
I worked 10 times hard to create my own legacy.
So you carved out your own path.
Yes.
And you've operated in politics, activism, and ministry. How do you define power today, and has that definition evolved over time?
It has, because I think that individuals have gotten away from what real power is. Real power changes things. And if you are not changing something, if you're not bringing something substantive to help enhance the growth and development of the individuals in your community, or the growth and development of the community, you are powerless. And I think what happens is people start to go to the Pied Piper syndrome, right? They get somebody and they put him up, and then they start blowing his little Pied Piper, that's what they call a Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And they start running around following, and this is the person. So everybody's now getting in line, chasing after the Pied Piper, trying to get something from them, because the Pied Piper done sold them a bill of goods, or sung a song, or played a tune that they liked.
Your mother left a legacy in public service. What does legacy mean to you, and how do you want your name to impact the next generation?
Foundation. Legacy means foundation to me.
Okay.
Because if you're grounded, you can build off of what is grounded. You know, like right now, you know, we're in the studio, right? The studio, we're on the ground.
Beautiful
we're
studio.
Out here. Beautiful studio, yeah, beautiful studio, right? We're on the ground, right? we're working. We're here on the ground and we're working. So we have some place to operate from. So the foundation is the most important thing to me about building a legacy, because you can shift and pivot off of a lot of things once you're on the ground, just like a boxer.
Right.
You know, you can go ahead, you can go left, you can switch up, you can go southpaw. You're on the ball of your heels, your feet,
Right.
you can back
gotta
pedal.
have that
You can,
foundation.
and so you got to have that foundation to build a legacy, and you leave that legacy intact. A lot of people end up getting involved in stuff, and I'm going to say this here, and some people don't understand what they're getting involved in.
Right.
And what they do, they get themselves into a trick bag, and now they got to fight themselves out of it. And we have seen people come and go, getting themselves in trick bags.
That's right.
Getting themselves in circumstances that they cannot avail themselves
Yes.
of. And then they go,
We don't talk about former Mayor Eric Adams.
I'm not talking,
Corey's
I don't
Corner.
talk about anybody. I don't talk about anybody. I don't
Now,
talk about anybody.
that's me. They know. The audience know.
I don't talk about anybody. Wasn't
They
he on
know.
the show before?
Yeah, he was on the show. He was the first guest on the show. That's my man. I love him, but
I don't know
he
nothing
got
about
caught up
nothing.
in the trick
I
bag.
don't know nothing about
So let's talk
nobody.
about, you said that the church is a cornerstone of the community. What role should faith institution play in today's societal and political
I
climate?
think that the faith-based community needs to change the mindset, because they need to do more outreach. If you go to a lot of churches are emptying out. And there are so many people out here that need direction on how to get someplace. And I think that if you teach somebody how to get someplace, then they can help somebody else. You need to come outside. You don't have to preach.
Right.
You ain't got to sing. We ain't got to dance. But maybe this person might need something to eat. Maybe the person might need a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Maybe a person might need a coat. Maybe a person might need a job.
Well, bring that up. Like, through your clergy luncheons and mentoring work, do you believe young men and women in our communities need most right now?
They need guidance. They need guidance, because I was getting back from earlier. There's a generation of children who raised themselves. They started listening to themselves, and then the children who those children who came after them, they ain't listening to nobody.
Oh my God.
They not listening to anybody. I've raised 3 children, and I thank God I was able to raise them, and all of them are being productive. So, I'm just saying, these children don't listen to nobody. Sometimes own children don't listen to us.
It's really sad right now. When it's all said and done, what legacy do you want Reverend Taharka Robinson to leave behind?
My legacy is wanting to be that I just tried to help people. I tried to do something different. You go down through the years, you have all these great leaders, and everyone has done something to cement their legacy in what they're doing. And so my legacy, I just wanted to help somebody. I wanted to make things change. And I'm proud of that. We even work to foster better community police relations in the city of New York. And I wish that process of those relationships can be reconstructed, because, young people have a mentality, the tragedy that transpired in Brooklyn last week with a 7-month-old child being murdered.
Yeah.
This guy is 18 and the other guy is 21. And I try to tell people, you cannot, the children, they need direction. And you go someplace and you're shooting with such reckless abandon.
Yeah, it's different. Listen.
And so I tried to help somebody. That's all I want to know. I tried to help people, and I tried to change things. I tried to make something in this world a better place than when it was when I came in.
Well, listen, my friend, my brother, Reverend, you have cemented your legacy. Now, you've done more in your young age than a lot of people have done in their lifetime. And I appreciate you and what you stand for. I appreciate your friendship and your honesty, clarity all the time. Is there anything that you want to bring up that we haven't covered today? We're wrapping now.
What I would like to say is that people are suffering in the city of New York, and people need help in the city of New York, in every community in the city of New York. That's what I like to say.
Okay. Well, can you let the people know what? Oh, he doesn't have any social media, people, so we can't even. If you got an issue, and you need Taharka Robinson,
you'll find me.
Reach out to oncoryscorner@gmail.com, and we'll make sure we get to him. And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, because you always had me in tears over here talking about that rapist. I'll never forget his name. His name was Thomas Boca. Thomas Boca, fucking rapist. He was raping elderly women and young girls.
Shit.
And actually, I watched him rape somebody on camera in the Van Dyke
Yeah,
house.
I remember that. I remember that.
Van
But
Dyke
that's
house.
where we was.
And
We was.
had
That's where you gave us
we
the
had
picture
cameras,
at. We was at Van Dyke, yeah.
And fucking cops telling me that they would sleep and their job was to watch the cameras, and we're watching him rape this girl on camera. Needless to say, I almost killed those cops, but he got caught, Did what we had to do. Well, my brother, this was a powerful conversation. Your journey from shaping political outcomes to standing on the front line for justice to answering the call of ministry really speaks to what it means to lead with both purpose and conviction. You've shown us that real change doesn't just happen in boardrooms or pulpits.
Thank you.
It happens when people are willing to stand up, speak out, stay committed, even when the fight is long. We appreciate the work you've done, the lives you impacted, and the legacy you continue to build in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you for pulling up a seat to Corey's Corner.
Thank you
to
for
our
having
listeners, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We've got more powerful conversations on the way.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you for having me.
I love you, man.
I really appreciate it, man. I'm so happy
This
to be
is
doing
good, man.
it. This
Thank
is
you
good,
so
man.
much.
I'm grateful. I'm glad you're doing this, man.
Thank you.
Get the word out, get the message out.
Yes. If you found value in today's show, again, please like, share, and subscribe. This has been another episode of Corey's Corner. Until next time, keep pushing, keep grinding, and always remember, it's not about where you start. It's always about where you finish. I'm Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Peace.
Special thanks to our executive producer, our engineers, and much respect to Corrupt Mob for making Corey's Corner possible.
Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, what up? Talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop, I used to hunt the block.